Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today, as the title suggests, I'm going to run you through my PVA bag setup, exactly what I do, exactly how and when I'd use them. Now, if you've been watching the videos over on the main vlog channel, I'll stick a link up there if you've not seen that and down in the description below. If you've been watching that, you'll know that recently I'll be on linear, doing mostly tench fishing, but some carp fishing as well. And I have used PVA bags on and off. And I've not gone into any detail in any of the videos about it. And one of the patrons, Roger, hi Roger, gave me a nudge the other day and said it'd be nice to, if I went into a little bit more detail on exactly how I tie them up and when and what I use. And I thought, no, that's a very good idea. I have only skimmed over it in the video. So today I'm going to run you through exactly what I do, when I do it, and how I do it. So here I have my bucket. I keep my PVA bag stuff in. It's two-part. You'll see why in a minute. The top section here has got in it the PVA bag mix, as you can see there. Various bits and pieces. I use two size PVA bags depending what I'm going to do. As you can see, very different sizes. Now, the reason for using different sizes is I would use this size if the water's cold and I just wanted a little mouthful of bait for perhaps a carp or a tench. I would also use this if I wanted to cast it out on my tench rods, because it's obviously a lot smaller. Inside the smaller ones, I tend to put 2 ounce lead. So this is probably about 3 ounces, something like that. So that's castable with my tench rods. That's the smaller one. The larger one I would use perhaps when the water's warmer. Perhaps if I wanted to draw more attention to a certain place. Perhaps I was fishing over some bait and I wanted a bigger pile of attraction to sort of stand out more than this one. This one I'll often fish on its own. So that's the reason for fishing 2 different bags. Now, what I put in the bags, again, all depends what time of year it is. If it's colder, I like a fish meal free bait, something along the lines of this. This is, as you can see, CC Moore Life System. Not paying me to advertise this, but I have used this. It's fish meal free. I prefer that in the colder weather. But once these warm up, I like to get the fish meals involved. I have used the Pacific Tuna bag mix in the past. This bag mix here I've actually mixed up on my own. I've made it myself. It's actually some krill active powder, you can see that, and there's some halibut pellets in there, a couple of sizes of halibut pellets. The main thing to bear in mind when you're making up a PVA bag mix is that particles want to be quite small. That enables you to get a nicely tightly packed bag, which enables it to be aerodynamic, which enables it to cast much easier. So small particles are definitely the way to go. So the rig that's inside these PVA bags, as you can see, they're on a little leader. What I like to do is tie them up in readiness and they're all ready to go. There's a little loop on the end of there, as you can see, I'm sure. Just fix that to your main line, either tie it on or loop it on, and you're ready to go. Nice and quick change. Now, the rig that's inside there, as I say, sometimes I'll use a small one, in which case I'll put 2 ounce lead in there. The bigger ones I'll perhaps use a 3.5 ounce, something like that. But the rig is basically the same for both. What I've got there is a length of leader. These are ready tied solid bag leaders. It's just a length of, well, it feels like lead cord, but it hasn't got any lead in it. And on the other end is just a swivel, as you can see there. You thread your lead up there. I like these Signet ones, quick change leads. They're not designed to drop off, but they do drop off if you get weeded up. There's a small tail rubber on the top end there. What will happen is, if you do get weeded up, and this has happened to me, that will drop off. This will all pull out, and that centerpiece there, under pressure, will fall out, and the line will come out of there, and your lead is free. I've had these drop off in the past. It does work quite well. Very good when you're fishing weedier lakes like I tend to do the linear lakes do tend to get quite weedy. As I say, that will just pop off under a bit of pressure. This middle stem pops out and your lead is gone, helping the fish not to get snagged up in the weed. But unless you give it some pressure, you know, if trying to perhaps free a fish from the weed, it won't come off, so they don't always discharge. So that's the setup on there. Hook link, it's just a very soft braid, perhaps 3 or 4 inches, very soft braid, as you can see there. With a hook tied on, not style there, with just a little kicker. I do like to use a bait screw, as you can see there. Let's take this bait off and you'll see. I like to fix baits on with a bait screw. Just a little bait screw there, as you can see. Just stopped with a hook bead. You can probably see there as well, I've got a BB on. Now I'll use a BB or an AA if I need to. If I'm using a pop-up, just to obviously keep it down and just balance it out so that it just sits nicely inside the pile of mix when the PVA is dissolved. If I'm using a wafter or something like that, I'll take that BB shot off. So let's show you how I tie these up. 2 different methods I use for tying up the 2 different bags. So I'll get these out of the way. Obviously keep them dry, because you don't want them getting wet. Hence using the bucket as well to keep all this stuff in here, keep it all nice and dry. Right, first method I'll show you is how to tie up a small bag. Get small bags out. There we go. I've used various ones for this. You've probably noticed this kicking about in here. This is from a Fox kit that you can get. It's very old, as you can see. Rapid kit, and this collar and locking thing comes in that. I find this very useful, although I don't use the Fox ones anymore because they're really hard to get hold of in the size that I want, to be honest. I'm using Signet ones at the moment. They're almost the same size. Locking collar, as you can see, I've gaffer taped it together because it's broken several times, but it works just as well, like that. The first thing to do is get your loading tool, stick the locking collar over the top, just holds it shut for you when you're putting a PVA bag onto it. Grab one of these bags out of here. They do come with sort of loading tool in here. I've not really used this purely because I've got this one, but they do come with a loading tool which you can sort of squad around yourself. I'm not sure, probably easy to do it that way without the embossing on it. I'm not sure how easy that would be to get that into the bag, but the locking collar certainly helps. So get a small bag out of here. These Signet ones do really stick together. There we go. Around that. Now, simply case, opening up the PVA. I've had a few different types of PVA. Some are really tricky to open up. Some are much easier. These Signet ones don't seem too bad. They do seem to stick together in the bag. But once you've got them apart, they're nice and easy to open the bag up. And what I'll do is put that on, I don't know, maybe an inch on there, something like that. Drop that collar off and that expands and holds the bag in place. The first thing to do is get a little bit of mix in the bottom there, just a tiny bit, maybe a centimetre. And I'm going to get my leader here, drop it in. I'm going to tap down the hook and bait there. I'm going to pick that up, and if you can see that, I'm going to drop this leader into that little V there, just so it holds the lead up out of the way. And then I'm going to put some more bag mix in. As I said, don't want to put too much in here. It's just a mouthful. Maybe for when tench fishing, so we don't want too much, or if carp fishing, perhaps when it's a bit colder. Right, I've put perhaps an inch in there now, and I've dropped the lead on, tapped it down a bit, dropped the lead on top, and now I'm just going to fill it to the top of the lead, like so. You can see that all right. That's filled now to the top of the lead. The anti-tangle sleeve's just sticking out the top of the mix. I'm going to give it a little wiggle. Now how I do this is I'm going to twist that like so, Put a bit of tension on it. I'm holding it onto the loader, and then I'm going to lick it all the way around, like so. Push that over there, like that. Just hold that down for a few seconds. There we go. We have one bag. Now, you could leave it like that. I like to tuck these sides in as well. These two tags. So what I'll do is lick those. Just hold them down for a second. Stick them down. It's all about just making it a bit more aerodynamic. Then I'm going to shove these corners in, like so. Lick that, pull it down and stick it. This also helps to compact the material in the bag as well. Do the other corner, like so. And there we go. More there, just stick that down. And there we are, one solid PVA bag, tied up. Anti-tangle sleeve, as you can see, just sticking out the top a little bit, and that'll cast lovely. It's nice and aerodynamic. So that is how I tie up the small one. The large one. Use much bigger bags for this. Now, I quite often use something like a small Northern Special. You see in there, tiny little pop-ups, 8mm pop-ups, various colours. Probably will use those for tench. For carp fishing, use something perhaps like that, salted squid, nice and bright. If I wanted a bright bait, bright attraction, it's a 14mm wafter. Or even, when we're a bit later in the season, something that matches the colour of the bag mix a little bit better. Something perhaps like that. Just put one of those on top of there. You'll see it sort of take all these gubbins out of the way. You'll see that sitting on there. It's much less obvious. And you may want that a bit later on in the season when the carp or the tench perhaps have been a bit more hammered. They've been a bit hammered on bright pop-ups sat over the mix. Perhaps becomes a bit of a signal of danger. You can move over to the much more natural colour. That's the thinking anyway. So I'll grab one of these. As I say, I've got one in here already, I think. Yeah, we'll use that one. So I'm going to go natural on here. These are wafters, so I can take off that BB. I don't need that. Screw on this wafter. Like so. Nice and hard, these guys stay on really well. But there's not an issue anyway really with these as you're casting them out. As you can see there, leader, 3.5 ounce lead there. I'm going to put this in a larger bag. Slightly longer hook link there as well. Just to give that slightly more movement. Probably expecting a bigger fish to take this, perhaps a carp. Do you want a little bit more movement in the hook link? Right, we'll grab one of these PVA socks and I'll show you what I'll do with this. Now what I'll do with this is just cut down the middle to about halfway down, something like that. It's a bit short of halfway, something like that. And we'll open this up. Took a bit of fiddling, but we got it open. These ESP bags do seem not very keen on opening up. Once you've started them, easy enough. So what I'll do is, once again, I'll use the loader on here. This time we don't need the locking collar because it's quite a big bag. Just find it a little bit easier to keep that open. So once again, a little bit mix in, not very much. Get that bag to open, there we go. A little bit of mix. Drop our hook bait in. Once again, tap it down, very similar thing. Tap that down, make sure it's lying nicely. Again, tuck our lead up there, out the way. Fill the bag up. We can fill it a lot more this time now. It's a bit more tricky to get the stuff to go past the lead because the lead's much bigger. Now what I'm going to do is fill this up so the top of the lead is roughly level with where I've cut down to in the bag. Obviously get a lot more mix into this one. All the while I'm just working this mix, working the bag. I'm going to get somewhere near. I'm going to take that locking collar out. As you can see, we're somewhere near. Just want a bit more in there, I think. Just work this bag and work this bag. There we go. So the anti-tangle sleeve's sticking out up above the slits we've made. Right, what I'm going to do now is just work this bag down. Get it nice and tight. Get it nice and tightly packed in there. The firmer you can get the bag, the better it'll cast, basically. That's about right. Just a little bit more in there. And then all I'm going to do is get hold of these two tag ends and double granny knot them. One like that. And you pull this pretty hard. That's one thing I like about these ESP ones. They're very stretchy PVA. Give it a really good tug like that. It's just a case of trimming off the ends. Once again, our anti-tangle sleeve is just sticking out the top there, as you can see. And then this one has a seam across the bottom, not down the sides. So it's just a case of giving that a lick and sticking it down like so. Taking the corners again, licking them and sticking them. Always a bit careful about putting too much saliva on there. I'm going to melt through the bag. That's it. Just enough just to stick it down. If you get it really wet, it will just melt the bag. There we go. Just hold it down for a few seconds. And there we go. Nicely packed bag there. That'll cast out absolutely lovely. And that's a lot heavier. Perhaps 5 ounces. Something like that. That's what it feels like. So that's how I tie my PVA bags up. That's the rig that goes in them, the hook baits that go in them, and the 2 different mixes I use depending on summer or winter. So I hope you found that useful and informative. If you've not used them before, they're quite a good way to go, PVA bags, in the right circumstances. Certainly for carp and tench fishing, bream fishing as well, in lakes. Absolutely fantastic way to go. And really very similar to a feeder or a method feeder, really, with your bait in the middle of that pile of feed. So all I have to do is say thank you very much for watching. I hope you find that useful. Tight lines when you get out there. Many thanks to the channel patrons for your wonderful support, and I'll see you all again very soon.